my fellow human beings. I'm Dr. Terrence Blythe, social anxiety psychologist, and author of the best-selling book, Talking is Hard, but have you tried just not doing it or maybe doing it better? And today I'd like to talk about a very important aspect of our lives, families. Families are the objects of our affection. They support us in times of need and times of trial. But what if they're other people's families? Today I'd like to talk about what to do in awkward situations where families show affection in front of you. So there are typically around 4 steps to this process, and I'd just like to take you through them. So step 1 is typically you're comfortable there, you're just hanging out with your friends, it's all good, your pals, your buddies, and then you hear the knock on the door, or the doorbell, if you will. And then Uncle Roger steps in, So then that brings us to step 2. The introduction. You meet Uncle Roger, right? Your friend is really excited to see Uncle Roger. They say, "Oh, hey, it's Uncle Roger. I love Uncle Roger," But Uncle Roger is kind of an idiot, And so this introduction, you're like, "Oh, hey, you're Uncle Roger probably." And he said, "Yeah, that's my name. Don't wear it out." And then he probably does one of these finger guns as if that's cool or even just acceptable to society. From this point, it moves on to probably in the introduction, he'll say, "Oh, so you're friends with my little knucklehead of a nephew here." And then that brings us to the next step, 3.2, the tickling. It can take many forms. It can be a noogie, it can be just regular old tickling, but that's the point where it gets awkward. It could have been awkward before when you were having your introduction, but it really gets just decimatingly awkward when the tickling sets in, So all you can really do is just stand there and just kind of pretend to laugh, kind of do a little haha, just kind of like try to smile anytime they look over at you, and just act like it's acceptable. And that can be hard. And so that brings us to like our solution. How can you get out of those situations where you're just stuck there watching families have a good time? Because that's really just disgusting. It disgusts me. But I found one of the best things to do is to make up an excuse and then to leave. So a good way you could do that is you could talk about a former obligation, or you could pull my favorite, which is I just remembered I have a lot of diseases right now. That typically works, but sometimes they won't believe you, or they'll ask you like, "What's wrong?" And so typically you can kind of fortify this by adding in a little bit of drama, if you will. So you can cough a little bit, or you can if you can force a little bit of vomit, that should work. Typically it scares people into letting you leave, basically. So I'd say once they're in a state of incapacitation, they can't really naturally say, "Oh, hey, stick around and watch me get tickled by my uncle some more." And you can typically just run. Just try to absolutely get out of there. It doesn't matter. Just like if you had a car, leave it. Just run away, because honestly, it's not worth it. It's not worth the level of awkwardness. Unless, of course, you can force out more vomit. That's about it. I hope that this helped you, and I hope that you can use this in future situations. Because I do know the pains of watching families enjoy time together. It's really disgusting, actually. And one last thing, for all you Uncle Rogers out there, mostly just why? Just don't, I'd have to say.